You know, in the past, I have been accused of cop hate, if you can believe it, on this here platform, in large part because I have, I've noted a tendency on the part of police officers in the past to run off with the guns, so to speak. I never thought I'd get angry at them for not doing that, but, here we are. The police who were present at the Texas school shooting, I'm not going to waste time with the fancy run up and intro. You all know more or less what happened there. The shooter engaged with the police officers outside of the school. The shooter made their way into the school, undeterred by the presence of those police officers. And then the police officers spent nearly an hour waiting outside of the building, scared to go in, listening to gunshots echo inside the school while they waited on backup. How? I'm not overstating the case here. That's literally and directly what's said. This is the New York Post. There's a New York Times article that says this as well. 12foot.io wasn't working for me. Here you go. Police waited to enter Texas school. A shooter went on a killing spree. Texas elementary school mass shooting suspect spent more than 40 minutes slaughtering young students inside as witnesses desperately urged police to charge into the building. So there were people shouting at the cops, go in there, because you can hear the gunshots inside of the school as the shooter just has free reign to kill whoever they want, while teachers inside of the school are dying to protect the students. The police officers are sitting outside vibing, going goblin mode. Now, the interesting thing here is that the initial report is that the shooter was too heavily armed and armored for the police officers to take to begin with, so they had to wait for like backup, like SWAT or whatever, with people with heavier arms and armor. But here's the thing, folks. So the shooter had guns, which is, funnily enough, what police officers also have. They both have those. They said it was heavily armored, Initially, the reports, you guys remember, right? The initial reports, he's just too tough. He comes in here, he's armored. He wasn't armored. He was wearing a vest with pockets to slot ballistic armor into, those plates that you put on. He was unarmored. A bullet would have gone through him, which means they didn't shoot him. They tried to lie about it, but they were caught on the lie. He wasn't armored. No, he wasn't armored. Those plates are expensive. Yeah, they are. The excuse I've heard is that he barricaded himself in that room. No cops could get in, but at least try. Cops can get into an elementary school room if they want to. There is nothing inside of a school that can prevent police officers from entering that room if they really want to. They have discretion to do basically anything they want when it comes to navigating that space. And as for whether or not the police officers, you guys think it's a bravery issue. Well, don't worry, folks. It's not that the cops aren't brave enough to go into the school, because they did. Police officers rushed into the school to get their own children, he added, and then they left. So they skedaddled on in, elementary school. So the police officers, I'm here to help. Sprint right in there, get their kids. All right, little Timmy, you're safe. Let's go back to hiding, behind the police cars. That's actually hysterical. Well, it is darkly funny. It definitely is. It's also unbearable conceptually. The bulk of the kids and teachers were in a single room and were massacred all at once while the police did fuck all. The police... So, hold on. It gets worse. They may have been the ones to barricade the shooter in the room. Oh, don't tell me. DPS Director Steve McGraw said twice the cops were the ones who barricaded the shooter into a classroom. That contradicts previous statements by other DPS Spoks, who said the gunman barricaded himself and immediately began shooting kids. Now this right here, the police timeline of the Texas school shooting has a lot of holes. I can't parse together the truth. We're only like a day and a half out from the incidents, and also I'm not a journalist, but usually when there are inconsistencies in the story offered by police, it's because they f***ed up really badly, and they're trying to keep the press from getting onto it. Unfortunately for them, rather than most of the times that police f*** up really badly, this is a massive national issue, so it's getting a lot of attention, which means journalistic inquiry, which means lies get found out. Like the lie about the armor. Maybe we'll find out that the police basically directly caused more kids to get killed by barricading the shooter instead of confronting him directly, Who's to say? Now, I'm not You know, people like to respond to behavior like this with like a, well, you're not a police officer. You have to be there. You don't know what their job demands are. And you're right, I don't. And I don't care either. Any situation where police officers are moseying on outside of the school while dozens of children are being gunned down, completely unimpeded by a school shooter for at minimum 40 minutes. 40 minutes. Think 40 minutes. You could watch like 2 TV show episodes in that time. Like you could start that, finish one, hit next episode, watch all that one through, and the whole time gunshots firing inside the school, and then you run in. 40 minutes in a situation like this. Unfathomable. Absolutely insane. A whole TNG episode. Now, the police officers are, of course, facing a tremendous amount of criticism for this, but I think it's important to understand that what we're seeing right here, it's not unique. I want to share a bit of a story with you, and I only learned about this, by the way, not because I was taught it in school, which is where I should have been taught this information, but I was taught this by a Knowing Better video, a video which all of you, by the way, should watch. Spectacular stuff. It is about the Columbine Massacre. This is basically the origin of the modern American school shooter thing. I want to talk about the behavior. Yes, Knowing Better is great. I want to talk about the behavior of the SWAT team here. See, SWAT teams exploded in popularity after Columbine. You know, they, oh, what if something big and special happens? We need the extra fancy boys with the big armor and guns to come on in. But the SWAT teams didn't do shit at Columbine. I will demonstrate by reading through Wikipedia, the only reliable source on Earth. All right? Scroll up. 12:08 p.m. suicides. I'd read the whole paragraph, but it's not relevant. At 12:08 p.m., they shot themselves. Why did they shoot themselves? How exactly did they shoot themselves? Doesn't matter. They're dead. 8 minutes before they kill themselves, at noon, SWAT teams stationed outside the school, ambulances started taking the wounded to local hospitals. A call for additional ammunition in case of a shootout came at 12:20. By this point, the 2 boys have been dead for 12 minutes. So keep in mind, the fire alarms are ringing inside the high school, you know, which muffles gunshots. Like, when fire alarms are ringing, it's kind of hard to tell if anyone's shooting inside. I'll give them that. That's fair to say, I think. If the fire alarms, those things are loudest, are ringing, you're not going to be able to confidently determine whether or not, shooting is going on. So I don't expect the police to instantly know that the boys inside have committed suicide. I don't believe that. However, authorities reported pipe bombs by 1 o'clock, and 2 SWAT teams entered the school at 1:09. 1:09. 1 hour and 1 minute after the 2 shooters killed themselves, the SWAT team, the basically militarily equipped police, finally dare to enter the school. Moving from classroom to classroom, discovering hidden students and faculty. They entered at the end of the school opposite the library. This isn't a joke. Hampered by old maps and unaware a new wing had recently been added. It boggles the mind the level of incompetence necessary to not know the layout of the school that you're about to be storming for a shooter situation when wings added to schools take literal years to plan and build. Okay. They were also hampered by the sound of the fire alarms. That's fair. Those are very, very loud. We go forward a bit. Patrick Ireland had regained lost consciousness several times after being shot by Klebold. Paralyzed on his right side, he crawled to the library windows where, on live television at 2:38 p.m., 2 hours and 30 minutes after all shooters in the building had shot themselves, 2 hours 30, he stretched out the window, intending to fall into the arms of 2 SWAT team members standing on the roof of the emergency vehicle, instead falling directly onto the vehicle's roof in a pool of blood. He became known as the boy in the window. The team members, Don Kramer and John Ramoniak, were later criticized for allowing Ireland to drop more than 7 feet to the ground while doing nothing to try to ensure he could be lowered to the ground safely or break his fall. So they just, watched as, this bloodied... Yeah, there's a video of it. At 2:15, so that's 2 hours and 7 minutes after the shooters have killed themselves, students placed a sign in the window, "One bleeding to death," in order to alert police and medical personnel of Dave Sanders' location in the science room. That's a teacher. Police initially feared it was a ruse by the shooters. So no shots fired in 2 hours, 7 minutes. The shooter has a brilliant idea. We'll put a sign up into the window encouraging them to come in. Genius. A shirt was tied to the doorknob. At 2:30, this was spotted, and by 2:40, SWAT officers evacuated the room of students and called for a paramedic. Hansi and Starkey were reluctant to leave Sanders behind. By 3 o'clock, the SWAT officers had moved Sanders to a storage room, which was more easily accessible. As they did so, a paramedic arrived and found Sanders had no pulse. He had died of his injuries in the storage room before he could receive medical care. So the SWAT team, after seeing the sign, waited. Only then, like 45 minutes after the sign had been placed in the window, did they enter that room and get the guy out, moved him to a storage room. And from the language here, I don't think they applied any kind of medical aid. I don't think they're obligated to in a perceived shooter situation, even though no shots have been fired in hours. So they didn't. They just sort of brought the bleeding guy there and just sort of put him like on the ground in the storage room. They just put him in a closet, basically. And the paramedics came and found him dead. He died in that closet, alone. You can read the whole thing if you want. This happens, like, all the time. Didn't this happen in Parkland, too? Police officers are fucking cowards. And the reason they're cowards is because the first rule that police officers are taught in academy is not protect and serve. Obviously, it's not protect and serve. It's make it home at the end of the day. That's the reason why. All the bad behavior that police engage in can be attributed to that. Every act of violence they commit against other people. How often cops are like twitchy fucking raccoons that jump out at you at a bush, you know? You got to play Simon Says with them. Keep your hands right there on the wheel when you're pulled over for a fucking rollover stop at a four-way stop sign, you know? They're twitchy because they're taught in academy. Any person at any time could kill you. They're treated, or they're taught to treat the environments that they're supposed to be protecting, the way that, like, U.S. infantry treated, like, Afghanistan during occupation. Like, anyone could have the improvised explosive device. Except, of course, soldiers have rules of engagement that limit the degree of escalation when they, like, begin to fire on people. Cops don't, you know? Like, cops can just open fire and, like, there you go. That happened. They feared for their life because somebody moved their hand a little bit slightly. Whereas, you know, soldiers have, like, there's, like, the list you have to go through, and you can be court-martialed if you don't follow that list, and blah-de-blah. They're worse. They're far worse. And I think it's important to understand, like, as long as this is their attitude, cops, not only will a cop not sacrifice themselves to save a child, a cop would rather let 10 children die than even risk their life. In this case, it was 19, or, well, it wasn't 19 children. It was like 17 children and 2 teachers, wasn't it? They would, like, they don't. At the end of the day, their lives are the thing that they care about. And the cops actually do have body armor, unlike the guy they lied about who didn't. Oh, sorry, no, 19 kids and 2 teachers. My bad. I didn't. Yeah, no, 19 kids. While they just, like, waited outside, you know, didn't do anything. Even if they had stormed the place and hadn't been able to protect a single one of those kids, even if all the kids had died before the cops could reasonably have done anything, at least that would have demonstrated on their part a willful engagement with the situation, a desire to risk their own lives to protect others. But they didn't. It doesn't really matter how many lives they could or could not have saved in any specific instance. It's about the attitude they have when approaching situations that could threaten them. But cops are pussies, aren't they? What about all those no-knock warrants? You know how they send SWAT teams to do no-knock warrants for, like, drug crimes? Because they're terrified. They don't want to have one cop knock on a door. They don't even want to have 2 cops or 6 cops knock on a door. They want, like, a whole squad of, like, rifle-wielding, you know, flak vest, you know, bulletproof helmet, everything, storming a building with no, because any threat to them is so intolerable that they will subject you to death if it means they get a slightly higher chance of coming back home at the end of the day, which is just not the philosophy I think police should subscribe to. In situations of great social tension, of danger, cops should be sorry if this is controversial, the first people to die. That's their job. Isn't that the point of the thin blue line? That's the job that you signed up for. It's like, it'd be like soldiers, you know, like soldiers fleeing from a battlefield. And you're like, why are they doing that? And they're like, it's really hard being out there. Why would you expect them to, like, fight there when they could die? It's like, well, that's your fucking job. You signed up for that. That's the main thing. And yes, I know the Supreme Court has ruled police have no obligation to risk their lives to protect you. The legality of their monstrous behavior is not of any concern to me. I don't care what the Supreme Court says about them. If cops aren't there to protect people, if because technically, nothing compels police officers to go save children from being gunned down by madmen except for their job requirements. It's not against the law for a cop to quit right there. So if we're talking like, what you're going to be arrested over, their effective desertion is not something like, we're not talking a legal issue. We're talking ethically here. And I think it makes it clear. Cops can have all the resources in the world. It's not going to make you one iota safer. They say, oh yeah, have an armed security guard at schools. That'll protect them. No, shooter will shoot him first. Or maybe that security guard is an ex-cop, in which case they're a fucking pussy and they'll run at the first sign of trouble. Who was the first person to die over at the supermarket in Buffalo? It wasn't the first person. One of the first people to die was the security guard. Got shot. What? You don't need one security guard, you need two, three? Columbine had an armed security guard, didn't it? It won't work. This good guy with a gun, bad guy with a gun bullshit is never, ever, 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 ever going to work because, unfortunately, the main group of good guys with a gun that we have, dubious good qualifications, by the way, are gigantic pussies. Yeah, the security guard did actually shoot at the guy, though, so that's something to the security guard, Credit where credit's due. The security guard at the Buffalo, supermarket, yeah, actually did hit an actually armored target, didn't he? The guy at the Buffalo, he actually was armored, wasn't he? Yeah. But he got him. At least it stung. And meanwhile, while the cops are sitting out there doing their drum circle, listening to the sound of gunfire inside, there are teachers in the school who are risking their lives, who, when it comes down to the moment, they actually do put their lives on the line to protect children. This has happened in a number of school shootings. Teachers throwing their lives away to even the slightest chance of protecting students. But cops, armed and armored cops, trained cops. I'm not just saying cops aren't heroes. They're less than normal people. Regular people can be heroes. Those teachers can be heroes. They're paid less to be heroes, trained less, armored less, armed less. They can be heroes. The cops, fearful, quivering cops, trained to fight. But fighting puts you at risk, doesn't it? No. So they are less than normal. They're less than not heroes. They're worthless. Absolute worthless. And by the way, this puts to lie the idea that cop militarization is about police officers responding to like high threat situations. First of all, that's not what SWAT teams are used for. SWAT teams are used in large part to like serve no-knock warrants to fucking like do drug raids or whatever. Like it's not like they're being shown up for fucking bank robberies every other day. That's a small portion of what they do. And additionally, like, they want to make every cop a SWAT officer. So you can do what? What threat are you going to address with your rifle and your armored vest and your like tear gas grenades? What are you going to do? Are you going to sit outside? All you're going to do is sweat more in your heavy clothing while sitting in the Texas heat as children die inside of the school. Okay, that's what you're going to do. The only reason they want cops more militarized is because yeah, Pigeon? She's also outraged. The militarized cops are more of a threat to ordinary people. That's why. It has nothing to do. All this police militarization is about keeping you in line, not about keeping, the dangerous criminals off the street. I'll tell you a secret, folks. I'll tell you a secret, okay? American criminals, they aren't doing their bank robberies in Abrams tanks. Regular old police officers with their regular old sidearms are capable of handling basically any threat level posed by any criminals in the American streets. That's sufficient for dealing with, I'd say, a significant amount of crime. So when they get their rental APCs donated offhand from the military, they get their rifles, their tear gas, what the fuck are they using that for? They're using it to scare you because they're too much of pussies to put that gear into actual use. Remember seeing the grenade launchers donated to cops? Yeah. Disgusting. Genuinely disgusting. Seriously. And by the way, I don't think that the cops at this Texas shooting, I don't even think they're uniquely bad or cowardly or whatever. I think it's a corporate culture, if you will. I think this is how cops are taught to behave. Civilians are all potential threats. Your life matters more than anyone else's. Any measure that you take to protect yourself, even if it puts them in harm's way, is justified because at the end of the day, you need to make it back home, all the time. People become cops so they can be the high school bully twice over. People don't become cops so they can risk their lives saving children being shot at. But this is getting attention. And I genuinely do believe that this is going to produce a lot of significant warranted anti-police discourse, because even the Associated Press is mainlining this information. Onlookers urged police to charge into the Texas grade school where a gunman killed 19 children, 2 teachers. Witnesses said the rampage lasted upwards of 40 minutes, ending when the 18-year-old shooter was killed by a border patrol team. I didn't even mention that. Yeah, it wasn't even the fucking cops that got him. Apparently, they're even disputing like the border patrol thing. Like it might have been a suicide, and they're just saying it was done by the other people as a way of. I don't know if that's true though. I'm just hearing different stories, and this stuff always takes a while to settle out. AP is pretty reliable though. Why were the border patrol team there? Oh yeah, ICE showed up. Did I mention that? ICE showed up to the school. Watch the rest of the video linked last night. Zigabis, I don't know why you think I would have a video that you linked last night. Uvalde has a BP checkpoint, yeah. Why you think ICE showed up? I don't know. Go into the ICE thing more. Well, yeah, like Merrick said, call for all units. You bring people there. Also, ICE, they just like being where the action is. They're just moseying on down. When you're evil and you work for ICE, like you want to be around the school shootings. It's like a human sacrifice for a vampire or something, or for a lich. You just want to be around. You just want to be where the action is. Are you familiar with the cop quote? It's better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6. Yeah. Like except they're never really judged by 12, are they? Certainly not convicted. And of course, this has led to a tremendous amount of anti-gun discourse. I don't want it to lead to anti-gun discourse. I think it's less productive than it being anti-cop discourse, or anti-Republican discourse, or anti-NRA discourse, but whatever. In the grand scheme of things, if I had to choose between two groups, one of which being SDL tier gun-hating liberals and the other group being NRA-loving Republicans, I'll choose the former 100 times out of 100.
Excuse me. Sit down. You're out of line and an embarrassment. Sit down and don't play this stuff.
The next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his ass out of here. This isn't the place to talk this over.
This is totally predictable when you...
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir,
out of line.
You are out of line. Please leave this auditorium. I can't believe you're a sick son of a bitch that would come to a deal like this to make a political issue.
That's the mayor of Uvalde saying that? Well, yeah, of course. Republicans are incredibly fragile. I'm sorry, but this is a publicity stunt? Yeah, of course it's a publicity stunt. But listen, the reason conservatives get so defensive over issues like this is because there's genuinely, like, every time one of these things happens, like, Republicans, like basically, like, they just don't want us to talk about it, I think the funniest evidence that you can see of that is Charlie Kirk. Let me see if I can find... Hello, Pigeon. Wow, Pigeon, we're so involved with Oh, yes. Fantastic. Yep. Uh-huh. 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 Yep. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Yeah. Charlie Kirk, let me see if I can find the... Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay, this is a brilliant one right here. And people were making fun of it, of course. Right here up top. If you're trying to politicize the senseless murder of 14 innocent children right now, you should probably stop. Pray for the families of the students in the community in Uvalde, Texas. This is before it was learned that the shooter was not a white nationalist. After the shooter was learned to have been a not white person, 40 minutes later, pay close attention to how quickly the media shifts their messaging from potential white supremacy to gun control after learning the last name of the shooter. So he literally, it was 18 minutes apart, lol. Yeah, it was literally like right off the bat. It was, let's not talk politics, guys. And then as soon as he realized the person wasn't white, it's like, all right, game on, baby. Yeah, beyond parody. Truly evil behavior. I'm surprised he just didn't delete the first tweet. Why? What difference would it make to delete the first tweet? Do you think Republicans care about consistency or truth? Do you think the obvious inconsistency in Trump's stories deterred any of his followers? They're anti-empiricists. They think things are true when the people they believe are true say it's true. Evidence has nothing to do with it. All right, cut this damn segment.